Ghosts don't retire, especially not soldiers. From headless drummers to phantom fighter pilots, the UK's most haunted military sites are crawling with spirits that refuse to leave their posts. These places are frozen in time, where the echoes of war never fade, and the dead still stand guard. Join me as we uncover the chilling true stories behind Britain's most haunted battlefields, castles, and prisons, where history doesn't just live on, it screams. Don't watch this alone. Help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Hit that button so we can keep uncovering the world's darkest mysteries for you. The Tower of London. London. The Tower of London is one of the most haunted places in the UK, with a dark history full of executions, torture, and betrayal. Many people believe it is home to restless spirits who still wander its ancient halls. One of the most famous ghosts is that of Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII. She was accused of treason and beheaded in 1536 inside the tower. Visitors and guards have reported seeing her headless ghost walking near the Chapel Royal where she was buried. Some say she carries her own head under her arm, while others have heard strange whispers or felt sudden cold spots in the areas where she was held prisoner. Another well-known ghost is the White Lady, believed to be the spirit of Lady Jane Grey, the young queen who ruled for only 9 days before being executed in 1554. People have seen her pale figure near the spot where she was beheaded, looking sad and lost. There are also stories of 2 young princes, Edward V and his brother, Richard, who were locked in the tower by their uncle, King Richard III, and never seen again. Their skeletons were later found hidden in the walls, and some claim their ghosts still play in the corridors dressed in white nightgowns before suddenly disappearing. The tower's bloody past includes many other executions and murders, leaving behind countless restless spirits. Soldiers on night duty have reported hearing footsteps, screams, and even the clanking of invisible chains. One famous story is about a guard who saw a shadowy figure in a long robe walking towards him. When he tried to stop it, his bayonet passed right through, and the figure vanished. The guard was so shocked that he fainted and was later found unconscious at his post. Even animals seem to sense the ghosts in the tower. The famous ravens that live there sometimes act strangely, as if watching something unseen. Legend says that if the ravens ever leave, the tower will fall, and some think their odd behavior is because they see spirits humans cannot. With so many deaths and tragedies in its history, the Tower of London remains a hotspot for paranormal activity, making it one of the most haunted military sites in the UK. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the chilling stories and real-life experiences of those who have worked or visited there keep its haunted reputation alive. Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. Edinburgh Castle, perched high on Castle Rock, is one of Scotland's most haunted places, with a history soaked in war, executions, and suffering. Many visitors and staff have reported strange sightings and eerie feelings inside its ancient walls. One of the most famous ghosts is the Lone Piper, a young boy who disappeared centuries ago in the castle's underground tunnels. Legend says he was sent to explore the winding passages beneath the castle, playing his pipes so people above could follow his path. But the music suddenly stopped, and he was never seen again. To this day, some claim to hear faint bagpipe music drifting through the tunnels, even though no piper is there. Another well-known spirit is the headless drummer, whose ghostly drumming is said to warn of danger to the castle. He has been seen and heard for centuries, especially before major attacks or disasters. Soldiers and staff have reported the sound of distant drum beats with no visible source, and some have even glimpsed a shadowy figure without a head, dressed in old military clothes. The most chilling story comes from World War II, when a guard swore he saw the phantom drummer the night before a German bombing raid on Edinburgh. The castle's dark past includes many prisoners of war who died in its dungeons, and their restless spirits are said to linger. Visitors have reported sudden drops in temperature, unexplained whispers, and the feeling of being watched in the vaults. One tour guide told of a group who saw a man in ragged clothes standing in a corner, only for him to vanish when they tried to approach him. Others have smelled rotting flesh or heard moans in areas where prisoners were once tortured. Even the castle's dog cemetery is haunted. Soldiers buried their loyal military dogs here, and some say their ghosts still roam at night. Security guards have reported hearing barks and whimpers near the graves, even though no living animals are present. With so much death and history trapped within its walls, Edinburgh Castle remains a place where the past never truly rests. Whether it's the sound of invisible drums, the ghostly piper's tune, or the cries of long-dead prisoners, the castle's haunted reputation is kept alive by those who have experienced its supernatural secrets firsthand. Pendle Hill Barracks, Lancashire. Pendle Hill Barracks in Lancashire has a long and eerie history tied to war, punishment, and restless spirits. Built in the 1800s, this military site was once used to house soldiers, but it also served as a prison for those who broke military law. Many men were locked up here for desertion or disobedience, and some never left alive. Over the years, soldiers and visitors have reported strange happenings that suggest the barracks are still home to troubled souls from the past. One of the most common ghostly sightings is that of a sad-looking soldier in old-fashioned uniform, seen wandering the corridors before vanishing into thin air. Some believe he was a prisoner who died in his cell, unable to escape even in death. Others have heard the sound of boots marching in empty hallways, as if an invisible troop is still on duty. The most chilling stories come from the old punishment cells, where unruly soldiers were once locked in complete darkness. People who enter these rooms often feel a heavy, suffocating presence, as if someone, or something, is watching them. A former guard once reported hearing desperate banging on the cell doors, but when he checked, no one was there. Others have heard whispered pleas for help, as if the spirits of prisoners are still begging to be freed. One visitor even claimed to see the shadowy figure of a man crouched in the corner of a cell, his face twisted in fear, before he disappeared seconds later. Another hotspot for paranormal activity is the old firing range, where soldiers were once executed for serious crimes. People have reported hearing phantom gunshots in the dead of night, along with faint cries of pain. Some have even seen the ghostly outline of a man standing against the wall, as if waiting for his final punishment. The air in this area often feels thick with sorrow, leaving visitors with an overwhelming sense of dread. Even skeptics have admitted to feeling suddenly cold or sick in certain spots, as if the past is reaching out to remind them of the suffering that once took place. The barracks' dark history seems to cling to its walls, with many believing that the emotions of fear, anger, and despair have left a permanent mark. Whether it's the ghost of a lonely soldier, the echoes of long-ago punishments, or the unseen presence in the cells, Pendle Hill Barracks remains one of the most haunted military sites in the UK. Those who have experienced its paranormal activity say it's a place where the past never truly fades, and where the dead may still walk among the living. Chillingham Castle, Northumberland. Used as a military base during wartime, Chillingham Castle in Northumberland is known as one of Britain's most haunted castles, with a violent history that has left behind many restless spirits. Built as a monastery in the 12th century and later turned into a military stronghold, its stone walls have witnessed torture, executions, and bloody battles. The most famous ghost is the Blue Boy, who haunts the Pink Room. Guests have reported hearing sad, muffled cries at night, followed by a bright blue light glowing near the bed. During renovations, workers found the skeletons of a young boy and a man hidden behind a wall in that room, their bones crushed. Some believe the boy was walled up alive as punishment, and his spirit still cries out in pain. Others have seen his pale figure dressed in blue, appearing briefly before vanishing into the darkness. Another terrifying presence is the ghost of John Sage, a former torturer who worked for the castle during medieval times. He was known for his brutal methods, and after being lynched by an angry mob, his spirit is said to have returned to the castle. Visitors and staff have heard the sound of dragging footsteps in the torture chamber, along with groans of agony. Some have even smelled rotting flesh in the air, though nothing is there. A group of paranormal investigators once recorded a deep, growling voice whispering, "Leave now," before their equipment suddenly shut down. Others have felt invisible hands pushing them in the dungeon, as if Sage is still trying to inflict suffering on the living. The castle's Great Hall is also haunted by the spirits of soldiers who died in battle. Disembodied voices, clanging swords, and ghostly figures in armor have been seen and heard by many. One tour guide told the story of a visitor who took a photo in the hall, only to find a transparent soldier standing behind her in the picture. Others have reported seeing a lady in white, believed to be the ghost of Lady Mary Berkeley, who still wanders the castle in grief after her husband abandoned her for her sister. She is often seen near the chapel, weeping silently. With so much death and despair soaked into its stones, Chillingham Castle remains a place where the past refuses to stay buried. Whether it's the sobs of the Blue Boy, the cruel presence of John Sage, or the echoes of long-dead soldiers, the castle's ghosts make sure no one forgets its dark history. Those who visit often leave with stories of unexplained chills, ghostly whispers, and the uneasy feeling that they were never truly alone. Fort Amherst, Kent. Fort Amherst in Kent is one of Britain's most haunted military sites, with ghostly soldiers still said to patrol its dark tunnels centuries after their deaths. Built in the 1700s to protect against French invasion, the fort saw many soldiers come and go, but some never truly left. Visitors and staff often report hearing phantom footsteps marching through the underground passages when no one else is around. The sound of whispered orders and distant shouts echo through the cold stone corridors as if an invisible army is still on duty. Some have even seen shadowy figures in old-fashioned uniforms standing guard in doorways before melting into the walls. One of the most common spirits is believed to be a heartbroken soldier who took his own life after being jilted by his lover. People have heard desperate sobbing coming from empty rooms, and some have felt an icy hand touch their shoulder when standing alone. A group of schoolchildren once saw the ghostly figure of a redcoat soldier leaning against a wall, his face buried in his hands. When their teacher went to check, the man had vanished. Others have smelled gunpowder and pipe tobacco in areas where no one was smoking, as if the past is leaking into the present. The fort's darkest area is the old punishment cells, where disobedient soldiers were once locked in complete darkness. Many visitors refuse to enter these rooms, saying they feel an overwhelming sense of fear and despair. Paranormal investigators have recorded sudden temperature drops and captured ghostly voices saying, "Help me," on their equipment. One night, watchmen reported seeing a pale face staring at him through the iron bars of a cell door, only for it to disappear when he shone his torch. Others have heard the sound of a man begging for mercy, followed by the chilling noise of a whip cracking through the air. With its long history of military discipline, loneliness, and sudden death, Fort Amherst remains a place where the barrier between past and present feels dangerously thin. Whether it's the sound of invisible boots on stone, the smell of long-extinguished campfires, or the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes, the fort's ghosts make sure their stories are never forgotten. Those brave enough to explore after dark often leave with the unsettling feeling that the fort's soldiers are still standing guard, just not in any form we can properly see. Portsmouth Historic Dockyard, HMS Victory and others, Hampshire. Portsmouth Historic Dockyard is one of Britain's most haunted naval sites, where the ghosts of sailors and soldiers seem to linger among the famous ships. The most haunted is HMS Victory, Lord Nelson's flagship from the Battle of Trafalgar. Many visitors and crew have reported seeing Nelson's ghost walking the decks where he died in 1805. Some claim to have spotted his pale figure standing near the spot where he was fatally shot, looking out to sea as if still commanding his fleet. Others have heard his voice whispering orders when the ship is completely empty. One night, watchmen swore he saw a man in an admiral's uniform walking below decks, only for the figure to vanish when he called out. Even more chilling are the reports of phantom footsteps following people through the ship's dark passageways, stopping suddenly when they turn around. Another haunted ship is HMS Warrior, where the sounds of invisible sailors still echo through its iron halls. Workers have reported hearing hammers banging and chains rattling in the engine room when no one is there. Some have smelled strong tobacco smoke in areas where smoking is forbidden, as if an old sailor is still enjoying his pipe. Visitors often feel sudden cold spots moving through the ship, and some have seen shadowy figures ducking through doorways. One woman claimed a ghostly hand touched her shoulder while she was looking at an exhibit, but when she turned, no one was close enough to reach her. The Dockyard's buildings are just as haunted as the ships. In the old rope-making factory, people have heard the voices of long-dead workers calling to each other, along with the creaking of machinery that was dismantled years ago. Security guards patrolling at night often report seeing figures in old naval uniforms walking along the quayside before disappearing near the water's edge. Some believe these are the spirits of drowned sailors returning to the place they last saw alive. The most tragic ghost is said to be a young cabin boy who fell from the rigging and died. His crying can sometimes be heard near the mast of HMS Victory, and some visitors have seen a small, sad face peering from portholes when no child is aboard. With hundreds of years of naval history, including battles, accidents, and harsh discipline, it's no surprise that Portsmouth Dockyard is full of ghostly activity. Whether it's Nelson keeping watch over his beloved ship, the sounds of an invisible crew still working, or the sad spirits of those who died too young, the past never seems to fade here. Visitors often leave with stories of unexplained noises, ghostly touches, and the feeling that they were never truly alone while exploring these historic ships and buildings. The Dockyard's ghosts serve as a haunting reminder that the sea always claims its own, and sometimes even death can't break a sailor's connection to his ship. Culloden Battlefield, Scotland. Culloden Battlefield in Scotland is one of the most haunted places in Britain, where the ghosts of fallen soldiers are said to still walk the moor where they died. On April 16, 1746, the last major battle on British soil took place here, when government forces crushed Bonnie Prince Charlie's Jacobite rebellion in less than an hour. Nearly 1,600 men were slaughtered that day, and many believe their spirits never left. Visitors often report feeling sudden chills or overwhelming sadness when standing near the mass graves where the Klansmen were buried. Some have heard ghostly bagpipes playing in the distance or the sound of men shouting in Gaelic across the empty field. Others claim to have seen mysterious figures in tartan wandering through the early morning mist, disappearing when approached. One of the most common sightings is a tall Highlander who appears near the Fraser clan stone, looking dazed and wounded before vanishing into thin air. His face is said to show the shock of sudden death, his clothes torn from battle. Local farmers tell stories of their dogs refusing to go near certain parts of the battlefield, growling at unseen presences. Some horses have been spooked by invisible things, rearing up for no apparent reason. Paranormal investigators have recorded strange voices speaking in old Scottish dialects, sometimes begging for water or calling for their mothers. One woman reported being touched by icy fingers when she stood alone reading the memorial stones, while others have smelled gunpowder and blood on days when no reenactments were taking place. The most chilling accounts come from those who have visited at dusk, when shadows seem to move unnaturally across the moor. Several people have photographed strange lights or misty figures near the clan markers, especially around the anniversary of the battle. The nearby old Leenach cottage, which stood during the battle, is also haunted. Visitors have seen a woman in old-fashioned clothes looking sadly from the windows, believed to be a survivor who tended to wounded soldiers after the fighting. Some have heard crying coming from inside when the building is empty. The road beside the battlefield has its own ghost, a Highlander who appears suddenly in front of cars before disappearing, causing several near accidents over the years. With so much violent death concentrated in one place, Culloden's energy seems to hold the memories of that terrible day. Whether it's the echo of final screams, the apparitions of doomed warriors, or the overwhelming sense of loss that hangs in the air, the battlefield remains a place where the past feels painfully present. Those who visit often leave with a heavy heart, as if they've briefly glimpsed the tragedy that unfolded there nearly 300 years ago. The ghosts of Culloden serve as silent reminders of a rebellion that failed, and men who died fighting for a cause that was already lost. Bodman Jail, Cornwall. Held prisoners of war, Bodman Jail in Cornwall is one of England's most haunted prisons, with a dark history that has left behind many restless spirits. Built in 1779, this grim fortress housed prisoners of war, criminals, and even innocent people awaiting trial. Over 50 hangings took place here, and the energy of those final moments seems to linger in the cold stone walls. Visitors and staff often report hearing phantom footsteps pacing the empty corridors, as if prisoners are still serving their sentences long after death. The most active area is the old execution pit, where many feel sudden drops in temperature and an overwhelming sense of dread. Some have seen shadowy figures standing near the gallows platform, while others hear the creak of invisible ropes swinging in the breeze. One tour guide witnessed a noose moving on its own, slowly twisting as if someone had just been hanged, though no one was near it. The jail's most famous ghost is that of Selina Wadge, a young woman hanged in 1878 for killing her disabled son. Her crying can often be heard in the women's wing, where she spent her final nights. Several people have reported seeing a pale woman in Victorian clothes rocking back and forth in a corner cell, her face buried in her hands. When approached, she vanishes into the wall. Another spirit is thought to be Matthew Weeks, wrongly executed in 1844 for a murder he didn't commit. His ghost has been seen in the exercise yard, walking endlessly in circles as he did when alive. Visitors standing near his old cell sometimes hear him whispering, "I'm innocent," over and over. The jail's underground punishment cells are particularly terrifying. These dark, cramped holes were used to break prisoners through isolation and starvation. Many visitors refuse to enter them, saying they feel hands grabbing at them in the darkness or hear raspy breathing right next to their ears. Paranormal investigators have recorded ghostly moans and the sound of chains dragging across stone floors in these cells. One night, security camera captured a strange mist forming into a human shape before disappearing through a solid wall. Staff working late often report hearing cell doors slamming shut by themselves, followed by the sound of someone running down the hallway, though no one is ever there. With its history of suffering, injustice, and violent death, Bodman Jail remains, a place where the past refuses to stay buried. Whether it's the sobs of condemned prisoners, the creak of the gallows, or the feeling of unseen eyes watching from dark corners, the jail's ghosts make sure visitors never forget the horrors that happened here. Those brave enough to take night. Tours often leave with stories of unexplained touches, ghostly whispers, and the unsettling feeling that they were never alone in the cells. The building seems to hold on to the pain and fear of those who died within its walls, keeping their memories alive in the most chilling ways possible. RAF Hethl Norfolk, former WD-2. Airbase RAF Hethl in Norfolk may look like an ordinary abandoned airfield today, but its empty runways and crumbling buildings hide terrifying, ghostly secrets from World War II. This former American airbase was home to the 389th Bombardment Group during the war, where young pilots flew dangerous missions over Nazi Germany, many never returning. Visitors and paranormal investigators report strange happenings that suggest some of these airmen never truly left. The most common sighting is of ghostly figures in vintage flight jackets walking near the old control, tower disappearing when approached. Some have heard phantom aircraft engines roaring overhead on quiet nights, though no planes are visible in the sky. Others report seeing strange lights moving across the runways at exactly the spots where bombers would have taken off during the war, as if the same missions are being replayed by unseen crews. The old barracks buildings seem to hold on to memories of the young men who lived there. People have heard laughter and chatter coming from empty rooms, along with the sound of old-fashioned radios playing 1940s music. One investigator reported smelling strong cigarette smoke and boot polish in a derelict building, scents that would have been common when the base was active. More chilling are the reports of someone unseen sitting on beds. Visitors have seen mattress indentations appearing as if an invisible person just got up, and some have felt the beds shake beneath them at night. The showers sometimes turn on by themselves, with witnesses reporting hearing the water running and seeing steam forming when all the pipes have been disconnected for years. The most tragic ghost is believed to be a young pilot who crashed on takeoff. His spirit has been seen near the old runway, dressed in full flight gear and looking confused. Some have tried to talk to him, only for him to vanish mid-conversation. Others report hearing desperate shouts of "Mayday" coming from empty fields, where planes went down. Local farmers tell stories of their animals behaving strangely near certain parts of the base, as if sensing something humans can't see. With over 200 airmen losing their lives while stationed at RAF Hethl, it's no surprise their spirits might still linger. Whether it's the sound of phantom engines, the smell of wartime hangars, or the sight of young airmen who don't realize they're dead. The base remains a haunting reminder of the brave men who gave everything during the war. Visitors often leave with an overwhelming sense of sadness, as if they've briefly glimpsed the courage and sacrifice of those who served here so long ago. The ghosts of RAF Hethl seem forever stuck in their final moments, replaying their wartime experiences for anyone sensitive enough to notice. The military ghosts of York, including York Army Museum and Clifford's Tower. York has been a military city for nearly 2,000 years, from Roman soldiers to Civil War troops, and many believe the ghosts of these warriors still walk its ancient streets. The most haunted military site is Clifford's Tower, where one of York's darkest moments occurred in 1190. Over 150 Jewish people were trapped inside by an angry mob and chose to kill themselves rather than be murdered. Visitors today report hearing screams and sobs coming from inside the empty tower, especially at night. Some have seen shadowy figures throwing themselves from the walls, only to vanish before hitting the ground. Others feel sudden, overwhelming despair when standing in certain spots, as if the tower's tragic past has soaked into its stones. The air often feels thick and heavy here, even on sunny days, and many people report being touched by unseen hands or hearing whispers in languages no one recognizes. The York Army Museum is another hotspot for military ghosts. Staff often hear boots marching on the upper floors when no one is there, and displays have been found moved overnight with no explanation. One curator reported seeing a Victorian soldier standing by a cabinet of medals, his uniform perfectly clear before he faded away. Others have smelled gunpowder and old leather in rooms where no such items are kept. The most active ghost seems to be a cavalry officer from the 1800s who appears near the exhibits about the charge of the Light Brigade. Visitors have seen his translucent figure examining the displays as if checking on how history remembers him and his men. Some have even heard him sigh before disappearing through a wall where a doorway used to be. The old city walls have their own share of phantom soldiers. Many people walking the walls at dusk have reported seeing Roman legionaries marching below in the mist, their helmets and spears clearly visible before they fade. Others have heard the sound of medieval archers practicing with their bows, though no one is there. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a night watchman who saw a group of Civil War soldiers fighting on the walls. Their screams and sword clashes so real he called the police, only for the noise to stop suddenly when help arrived. With so much bloodshed over so many centuries, York seems to hold on to its military past in ways that can still be seen and heard today. Whether it's the tragic souls at Clifford's Tower, the dutiful soldiers in the museum, or the ancient warriors on the walls, these ghosts serve as reminders that York's history was written by soldiers, and some of them aren't quite ready to be forgotten. Visitors often leave with stories of unexplained noises, sudden temperature drops, and the feeling that they've briefly stepped back in time, surrounded by an army only they can see.